Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Kentucky Kernel podcast, the University of Kentucky student award-winning newspaper. I'm your host, Nate Lucas, and this week I will not be joined by my co-host, Gianna Gallo. She's unable to join us this episode because of a sore throat, and we hope that she's feeling better next week. In today's episode, I will interview both a current and a past editor of KRNL, the University of Kentucky student award-winning magazine. We'll talk about their starts in journalism, highlight some of KRNL's awesome stories, and discuss what it's like to be a leader of a student media organization. If you haven't yet, make sure to pick up a new edition of their magazine for the fall semester. All right, and a quick disclaimer, the opinions expressed on this podcast are the speaker's own and do not represent the opinions held by the Kentucky Kernel. All right, let's go. All right, hello, you two, and welcome to the podcast. Could you all introduce yourselves really quickly for our listeners?
Hi, I'm Rana. I'm the current lifestyle editor of KRNL and last year's editor-in-chief.
Hi, I'm Emma. I'm this year's editor-in-chief of KRNL.
All right, perfect. And so you two, I don't want the whole podcast to be about this, but we recently just attended the College Media Association conference, and I just want you all to brag on yourselves for a little bit. Talk about the awards that you received, the projects that you worked on to receive those awards. Just reflect on your hard work a little bit.
Yeah, it was a crazy experience, but yeah, we did win big. KRNL, our spring 2023 issue of KRNL did take home the pinnacle for Feature Magazine of the Year, which is extremely exciting.
Huge.
It's huge, and I didn't really expect it. You know, I was looking at a lot of the magazines that we were up against, and I was like, oh man, there's no way we win. And then we did, and I was just so emotional over it, and it was great. And then my story from that issue, Lonnie Ali's Legacy of Love, which is my interview with Lonnie Ali, the widow of Muhammad Ali, ended up taking home the pinnacle for Best Profile Story. And that was even crazier to me because it's like I didn't really picture winning awards for this story when I initially wrote it, but it was just like the greatest, I don't know, just like reward and just like affirmation that, you know, I'm pretty good at what I do, and yeah, so that was great. And then Emma, what did you win?
My story won second for Best Feature Story, and it was a story also from last spring. It was about Horse Kicks, which is a marketing campaign that was done by Cornet, which is a local advertising agency, and they worked with a local artist to design wearable horse sneakers. And this artist kind of blew up his career because of it. It got 3 billion views as a whole campaign, which was really huge. So that was, you know, a really cool story to write for me because I'm an ISC major and it kind of relates exactly to what I'm studying. So I, like, same as Rana, I wasn't really thinking about like winning awards or doing anything to that extent when I wrote this story, but it was really, you know, gratifying to kind of see my writing up against other national award-winning writers. And I honestly, I didn't even know that this story was being entered until after our advisor told me that it was up as a finalist. So that was really a really good surprise.
Yeah, I had no idea about my story either until I got the announcement.
Congrats on yours.
Yeah, thank you. For our listeners, I got an honorable mention and Best Coverage of Faith Division 1 for a report on the Asbury University revival a year ago that I wrote with my roommate, Bryce Toll. So your all's stories were really unique. I totally see how you all placed really highly, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Reading the new edition of KRNL, I could totally tell all of the work that went into it, and I know that those stories definitely reflected that as well. So my first real question for you guys, I usually ask this of all the journalists who come on here. How did you all get started in journalism?
When I was applying to college, I didn't want to do journalism, or at least I didn't think that it wasn't my first choice. My first choice was psychology, and you know, I started applying to colleges. I was like, you know, I thought I was going to be a therapist, and I was like, well, I don't even know if that's what I want to do, but I do know that I'm pretty good at writing, and I'm like, okay, how do I do that for a living, but while still being able to do like marry my other interests in along with it. And so that's when like journalism came into the picture, and started applying to journalism programs at different schools. UK wasn't my first choice, but ended up being the right choice for me after, deliberation. But I've come to love it. I know I didn't think that feature writing and profile writing would be my like niche in my career so far, but it's like most of what I have been doing, and just like I've really enjoyed it, and I'm pretty good at it too. And
yeah, pretty good to get first place.
Well, trying to be humble. But yeah, I'm really grateful for KRNL too for just giving me those opportunities to focus a lot on long form storytelling, and just like having one story to work on for an entire semester, I think is my favorite way of working. I know that's not how it works in like most of the journalism industry, but I really love that structure of like picking a subject and kind of just delving into that for an extensive period of time, and I think I produce my best work doing that. So I really love journalism. I've grown to love it over the years, and I'm hoping to continue to pursue it in the future.
Mm-hmm. And Emma, how about you?
I've always really loved writing. Ever since I was a little kid, like I would just sit there during recess and write little short stories about the stupidest stuff. But when I got to like high school, I started doing like yearbook writing, and I was the editor-in-chief of the yearbook in high school. And I think the part that I kind of loved most about that was just, other than just being a leader, getting to like write the stories of like the clubs and the things that people don't usually see from the behind the scenes. So I kind of wanted to take that into college a little bit as well. And so I'm an ISC major, not a journalism major, but I think KRNL has been like a great outlet for me to kind of marry the interests of like production and design and all the stuff that I'm doing in ISC, along with writing, which has just been a passion of mine since I was a little kid. So.
Mm-hmm. So my next question for you all is kind of, how have you all found yourselves in this leadership position? What's it like to be a leader of a media organization? Because, I mean, I am with the Kernel, that's mostly journalists, but I know that KRNL has so many different places that you can go with it. So what is it like leading people that aren't necessarily journalists? And, I mean, you're an ISC major, and you became the editor-in-chief, so there's a lot of different ways that you can approach KRNL, so.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely been a challenge this semester, is just kind of appealing to so many different groups of people that think a very different way. Because obviously, like, there's ISC majors, there's journalism majors, there's marketing, communications, fashion, everything. So I think just my biggest challenge of this semester was kind of just keeping an open line of communication, and like just making sure that everybody knew that they could come to me if they had any questions, because it was a learning experience for me too, so I didn't really know what everybody needed from me. But how I kind of got here, when I like first toured UK when I was in high school, I saw like the Kernel newspapers, I saw the magazines, and I just had this like gut feeling that I just like really wanted to be, a leader in that organization, wanted to kind of produce the kind of work they were producing. And yeah, so I just kind of started from the very beginning, befriended Rana and a bunch of people on staff, and then, just kept putting out work and showing that I cared, and that's half the battle.
Mm-hmm. And Rana, what was it like holding the leadership position for you?
It was crazy. I mean, I loved it. I loved every minute of it, though challenging. A lot of the time, I learned a lot from it, and I actually had a great time. I didn't know KRNL existed until I was a freshman, and I had journalism 101 with Jen. We had our little 5-minute one-on-one, and she was like, "Oh, did you know that there's a fashion lifestyle magazine on campus?" I was like, "No." She's like, "Oh, well, I'll put you in contact." And from that moment, from the first blog I wrote for the website, I was like, I'm going to be editor-in-chief one day. And it did happen. And I was just so excited. It was there. Yeah. Like Emma said, there is a learning curve at first. Yeah. And, you have to take that first semester and just be really open to the change and learning how to be a leader. But now, even though I'm not in an editor-in-chief position, I have all this experience and I have all this knowledge that, I can just dispel that on other people, and people still kind of look to me as a like a leadership figure within the organization, which I really appreciate because I'm glad that people have trust in me. And that's another thing. I built trust over the past years, among my peers and my coworkers, and that's really important to me to just have those people's trust. And I'm glad to be still in a leadership position of my own little team. I love my writers. I'm glad to be able to focus on the lifestyle portion of the magazine and to really just work on the journalism part, which is where I started and where I plan on continuing to go in the future.
Yeah. So I've had the privilege of reading the latest edition of KRNL, and I kind of have noticed a trend with all of these stories. They feel like they're very unique. They focus on people that don't often have a voice, and it's a lot about arts and culture and those types of things. So I was wondering, what is the decision-making like when it comes to deciding what stories go in KRNL? Where do you find these people, etc.?
I'm going to speak to my own lifestyle editing experience. So when I brainstorm ideas, I talk to people. I just ask them, hey, do you know what could be a good story for the magazine? Do you know any interesting people? Anything interesting happening in the community? And that's kind of like where the ideas come from. Most of the story ideas are from other people that I've talked to. And, just people know things. So I think it's just important to like always just be talking and listening to what's going on around you. And then when we have our meeting for when we are budgeting for the semester, it's a conversation of what is relevant to both the Lexington and also the UK community, because UK and Lexington are our target audience. We want to appeal to them, especially like the college students of our community. What appeals to them, what is relevant, and what is just an interesting story that people would want to hear. And I'm glad that all of our stories in this issue are, hit all those boxes. Emma, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I think we're in a unique position, like compared to Kernel, where we obviously have a longer time to focus on our stories, and just that we get to focus on like profiling people and featuring people. And during our our initial meetings to kind of decide the stories, like it is a huge group discussion where we kind of go through all of the story ideas that everybody's brought up and like pick and choose based on like what fits together the best, so we can kind of see like the flow of the magazine before it's even created. So I think that's a really fun part of magazine work.
And good artwork is also very important. I think you can have a great story, but the art has to kind of be on that level as well. So I'm very proud of all the photos and imagery that are in the magazine, because we do kind of hold ourselves to equal standards for both the photo and the writing. I think both are equally as important.
For sure. I can definitely tell that when reading it. So what does getting access for these stories look like, specifically maybe with Lonnie Ali's story? That seems like a hard person to get to talk to.
Lonnie was very lucky, actually. My mom volunteers at the Muhammad Ali Center, and so she was able to get that contact for me. And I was scared reaching out to her. I thought she wasn't going to want to do it. But because she's someone who works in the background. She does not like being the center of attention, and let alone having a whole story written about her. So I was like, oh, she's going to say no, whatever. But she was actually open to it, and that surprised me. And so that also put a lot of pressure on me, because, I want to do her justice. She doesn't like doing this very often, and this is like an opening for me. So I want to do it right. And, we don't always get that lucky with stories. Sometimes we reach out to people and they are very against it, or they just don't respond to us, or it takes multiple contact efforts to reach them. But, yeah, I got lucky with Lonnie. It was very, very lucky.
I think, Emma, for you, I kind of have a question about the Appalachian film. Was it a film place?
Yeah, Apple Shop.
Yeah, that was very cool. How far did they have to drive to get there?
That, I think Sydney said it was close to 3 hours almost.
Yeah.
It was a really long drive. I'm really glad that story ended up happening though, because I think it's very timely. I've always I heard about Apple Shop when I was in a documentary film class my freshman year, and I always just thought it was really cool and weirded me out that I had never heard about it at all before now. Even though I was focused on arts and culture and all that stuff even through high school, and I just seeing the photos from that story after it was produced, that was the first time that some of the employees had seen the flooded workspace, the gutted just raw wood and everything after it had flooded. So I think I'm really glad that story happened, because we were able to capture such raw emotions from everybody, and I think it was really well written.
Yeah, I thought that was an excellent story. I think it was my favorite, and then my second favorite was all of the old people dressed up in vintage clothes. I just thought they were cute.
I love that one too.
Yeah, not for writing's sake, but just for I enjoyed it. I enjoyed looking at photos of them in vintage clothes. Also, for our listeners who might not have gotten the chance to read KRNL, if you haven't, what are you doing?
Right.
But if you haven't gotten the chance, the Apple Shop is a film. They make films in the Appalachian Mountains, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Could you explain it a little bit more?
Yeah. So Apple Shop was, I think, the first film workshop of its kind in rural Appalachia. And it they have their own radio station, they produce documentaries, they make movies, and they have their own screening room inside of their studio. And they were affected by the Eastern Kentucky floods last summer. And so their whole workshop flooded and was completely gutted, and they did a lot of work in Eastern Kentucky to kind of get the community back on their feet. So I think that was just a really cool, uplifting story to show, even with that much hardship, they were able to still keep going and help their community.
Mm-hmm. So is there anything else that you all want to talk about with this edition of the magazine? Is there anything with the workflow process that you all think is important to talk about?
I just think it's a great example of students coming together from different backgrounds. We are a journalism publication, but most of our staff aren't journalism majors. We have people from fashion merchandising, we have finance people, we have other people in CI, and it's we all are coming together because we all want to be creative in some capacity, and whether that means styling or photo or writing. KRNL offers KRNL has something for everybody if in terms of being creative. And that's what I'm most proud of every single semester when we go to print, because it's just holding all of this a semester's worth of work, sometimes longer. We've been working on this since the summer, so it's just it feels so rewarding when I see it in other people's hands, because dang, this is our baby, we put everything into it, and I hope it inspires other people on campus to be creative as well. That's just my biggest hope, and that people take away from it.
Yeah
I feel everything that I've seen today, once we released, and just every other semester, whenever just people that didn't know we exist go and look at our magazine, they're always in awe that all of this was student produced. And it's it's obviously gratifying to me as the editor just to see all of the hard work that every single person on each team has put into this. There's usually over 50 people on our staff that put their heart and soul into this magazine. So just seeing all of that through the production process, and then seeing it in our hands today was just really rewarding, and I feel really accomplished.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, you guys should feel accomplished. That's awesome. So not to get too ahead of ourselves, but what does the future of KRNL look like for you guys?
Well, I got one more in me, and then I'm out of here. But
Yeah.
I really want to see KRNL continue the trajectory we're on right now of continuing to experiment, trying new things. This issue is different from what we've done in the past in a lot of ways, and I just hope that we continue to feel out other different techniques, different design, photo, writing. I just want KRNL to always be evolving and to never stay the same ever. We have a brand to maintain, of course, but it's not fun if you're doing the same thing over and over again. So I hope the future generations of KRNL, I don't know what to call them, KRNL-lites, you know, they continue to experiment and try new things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, same here. I feel like, spoiler alert to my editor's note, but I feel like my goal kind of coming into this issue and coming into this year as editor was just to kind of like push our boundaries creatively in like everything that we do, and don't just do, you know, the same photo shoots, the same story concepts, the same design work that we always do, and just kind of like push our style, push our design work especially. Like I feel like that's some of the comments that we've gotten in the past with our critique. Like we have a very good brand, but we always have room to experiment and try new things. And I think our staff is so talented that I just want to, you know, continue to do that next semester and in the future.
Yeah.
All right, awesome. Well, is there anything else that you guys want to talk about?
Please pick up an issue and let us know what you think, because we worked really hard on it, and I would love to hear everyone's feedback on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, same here. I'm, you know, super proud of the staff and all of the hard work that all of us have put into it this semester, and I'm really excited to continue to do that and more next semester.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on the podcast today.
Thanks.
It was awesome talking to you guys. I'm glad to hear the other side of student journalism at UK. So thank you all.
Thanks for having
Thank
us.
you.
Yeah. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Kentucky Kernel podcast, the University of Kentucky Student Award-winning newspaper. I'm your host, Nate Lucas, and this week I will not be joined by my co-host, Gianna Gallo. She's unable to join us this episode because of a sore throat, and we hope that she's feeling better next week. But in today's episode, I will interview a current and past editor of KRNL, the University of Kentucky Student Award-winning magazine. We will talk about how they got started in journalism, what it's like for them to be leaders of a media organization, a student media organization at that. And we'll talk about some stories that have won awards, some highlighted stories that are just awesome to take a read. You can read all about their stories in the new edition of KRNL. All right, I'm going to do that again. All right, so now let's do scoops of the litter. Today is going to be a short scoops out of the litter. All right, hello and welcome to Scoops Out of the Litter, where we tell you what you need to know about the news as a college student. So today's Scoops Out of the Litter is going to be pretty short because Gianna's not here. We can't discuss the news. But I would just like to highlight a couple stories. So for our first story, I just want to talk about the Kentucky gubernatorial election. So we have Andy Beshear, the incumbent governor, our governor at the moment, going up against Daniel Cameron. That's going to happen tomorrow. They will be holding their little election parties at about 6 p.m. tomorrow night, and we'll have a bunch of staff at both of their events, and we'll see who wins. Whoever wins, we're going to have a ton of election coverage on our website about whoever wins. We already have a ton about who people are going to vote for, what issues are going to affect this election the most. So if you haven't already, please go check it out at kykernel.com if you haven't yet. All right, and so for our second story, our second and final story, I just want to talk about the UK School of Journalism and Media hosting the annual State of the First Amendment address. So this was held in the Rosenberg College of Law Grand Ballroom. And I just wanted to highlight this event because the Champion of Open Government certificate was gifted to UK alumna Kendall Staton. So what Kendall did was investigate the earnings of Harrison County School Superintendent Harry Burchett, and Kendall is actually a alumni of the Kentucky Kernel as well. She's a former Kernelite. So I just wanted to direct attention to her award. It's great what she's doing over at the Cynthiana Democrat. I want to say that's how you say it. Apologies if I didn't. But I just wanted to highlight her amazing award and her amazing work. And if you haven't already, that's also on kykernel.com. Front page, so you'll be able to find it super quickly. Oh, and then I also wanted to talk about this is the actual third and final story. Sorry about this. Our third and final story, Bashir actually came to campus last week, and he was met by anti-Israel protesters. He was met by Palestinian protesters that interrupted his event, and he didn't say very much to them. But I just wanted to say that they interrupted his event, and they will actually be there tomorrow, I believe, and we have more coverage on that. So the Kentucky Kernel website is getting a lot of important news lately. So if you haven't, you really should go check us out on our website. There's a lot of interesting stuff on there, and stuff that you would get a better understanding of if you just sat down and read it. But hopefully we can get a reporter from any of those events on the podcast soon, and we can talk a little bit about that. That would be sweet. And if you haven't, we did cover the election a little bit on the podcast with Al Cross last week. Gianna did by herself. So, all right. Well, I'm rambling a little bit. Thank you guys for listening so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to listen. And thanks to Rena and Emma for joining us again. But that's it. All right. Outro song.